get the impression from the people that control the microphones and the cameras that there is a certain view of the world which is different from yours. But you talk to enough people and you'll realize that behind this reticence to speak their truth, they feel the same as you do behind your reticence to speak your truth. I went to a bookshop years ago in the middle of the mass ridicule. It was in Oxford. And the manager came up to me. He said, "I have a very interesting thing today," he said. He said, "What I did is because I was right at the center of mass ridicule then. He said, I asked the staff what they thought of David Icke. And I said, look, just tell me honestly, just tell me honestly what you think." He said about 80% had sympathy for what you're saying, but none of them were saying it to anybody else. And that's what's happening to society in general. There is a vast number of people who don't want what's happening, who feel uneasy about what's happening, who don't want to have themselves intimidated into silence. But they think they're kind of one of the few. They're not. But because people are silent, they understandably think they are, because the noise is coming from the few who dominate the microphones and the cameras. So we need to speak our truth. And you look at all these kids, it's so sad, who, the suicide rates among young people are going up. And they're all going up significantly in the social media, smartphone era. And they're being psychologically broken by the abuse, by not being what others say they should be and not living up to what others say they should be. That can only happen when we allow ourselves to be self-defined by other people. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it, kids. Don't do it. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. We need to define ourselves. I am my unique self. I don't want to be like anyone else. I am a point of attention with an infinite state of consciousness, therefore an infinite state of perception. I am a unique expression of that consciousness, as you are and as everyone else is. I'm going to celebrate that uniqueness. I don't have to join the herd and be like everyone else because the herd tells me I must join the herd. I don't join herds, thank you very much. I define myself. Don't define yourself by the herd, because if you do, you become the herd. And when you become the herd, your unique self is gone, because your perceptions and what you are communicating as your perceptions are not yours anymore. They're the herd's perceptions. They're what whoever controls the herd, that's the point, is dictating those perceptions to be. And we are in an extraordinarily extreme situation now of the carrot and the stick. You get the carrot if you conform to the herd and you do what the herd demands. You get the stick if you don't. Well, I've taken the stick for 30 years, and I can tell you, it don't hurt. Unless you choose to believe it does, right? I've had historic levels of abuse. I've not been upset by it. I've not been offended by it, because I am my unique self. And if you're a unique self, then other people who are coming from a different point of view will think you're strange, they'll think you're crazy, they'll think you're dangerous. But that's for them to sort out. That's for them to work out. Not for me to work out. I'm just being me. And if you are celebrating your personal uniqueness, no matter what size you are, how tall you are, what you look like, what color you are, what religion you have, it doesn't matter. You're celebrating your unique self. Then whatever anyone tells you you must believe, what you must do, what you must think, however people are abusive towards you for what you look like or what you are, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because you are in your own power of individual uniqueness. And that's what's being driven out of people, because it has to be. They have to get us into groups, into herds, ultimately in a global herd, so that we'll move as one unit. And here's an analogy. I stood one day and I saw this shepherd walking across this field towards a gate with his stick. One shepherd, one sheepdog. Enormous flock of sheep. And they're following the shepherd. And any of the sheep that were breaking out of the pack, the sheepdog sorted them out. And what did that represent? Fear. And they were following the shepherd, and they went through the gate and they went across to the farm. And I looked at it and I thought, that's humanity passing by, because exactly the same happens, because we concede our uniqueness to it. I would say this, first of all, if you don't give in to fear, abuse and all that stuff, symbolized by the sheepdog, what's the sheepdog going to do? Rope, 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 rope. And? Rope, 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 rope. And? Where's the sheepdog's power? Right? And then, what if the sheep following the shepherd, because they do every day, oh, this is life, this is what you do, you follow the shepherd. What if they said, I'm going to see what's over here? And another one says, I'm going to see what's over here. I'm fed up of following the shepherd and conforming to what I'm told to do and go where I'm going over here. The shepherd, symbolizing the elite, controlling the world, controlling society, what's he going to bloody do? He's standing there now with his stick and he's seeing sheep going off in all directions. He don't know where to start. Because his power was illusory. The power of this elite is illusory. The power this elite recycles back against us is the power we give to the elite every day. And so if people cease to cooperate with their own enslavement, by when the system says do this, I'm not doing it. You know, someone comes out of Downing Street or the White House and they say, we've had a discussion, this is what's going to happen. What if enough people say, we're not doing it? Not doing it. Where's their power? Their power is in our acquiescence to them, as the power of the shepherd is in the sheep's acquiescence to him and the intimidation of the fear of the sheepdog. The few cannot control the many unless the many cooperate with their own enslavement. We need to stop doing it. And when we do, it's over, kaput, finished. And that's why this cabal is so terrified of the communication of information that is going to alert humanity to its plight. Because it knows that when humanity becomes aware of the game is over. And it can be over even in the latter stages of this enslavement agenda. It can still be over when we withdraw our acquiescence to it. And I say this to kids and anybody else. How long could you live without your smartphone? And then ask, what is an alcoholic? What, an alcoholic? Is someone addicted to alcohol? Yeah. Why is he addicted to alcohol? Because he can't stop drinking it. Yeah. But you can't put your phone down. And if you do, within a few minutes, you pick it up again because you're addicted to it. So are you controlling that bit of technology in your hand, or is that controlling you? That's controlling you. So do you want your life controlled by a bit of technology? Do you want the rest of your life controlled by it? Or are you now going to go, I'm putting this down?
Is that the first step for most people?
Well, that's the first step. Put it down.
Put it down.
You see, if technology is going to be the servant rather than the governor, it has to serve the interests of humanity, and humanity does not have to serve it. We're in a situation now where humanity is serving technology. And it will be serving AI. Increasingly, it is serving AI in its algorithmic expression. I have a mobile phone of way back down. I think it's 3G, they call it. And it sits in a desk at my house for months on end, sometimes 6, 7 months. If I'm in a situation where I need to communicate with someone that I won't have any other form of communication where I am, I might have it with me. I'll communicate and I'll say, I'll be on a landline at this time, and the thing goes off and goes back in the drawer for another 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It serves me rarely when I'm in that situation. And you find there is very, very little that won't wait till you're on a landline. And you can have a proper conversation with someone without this burning your brain and without you constantly on it. Because what is happening, and this cabal knows this, for a very long time, indeed right up to recent times, science believed that once the brain was formed, that was it. That's how it stayed. Now they know it's very different through this thing they call brain placidity. Brain placidity means the brain is changing in the way it processes information and the neuron networks it creates to process information on the basis of information received. So what we've had in this very short time is the human brain bombarded with digital electrical stimulus that it's never experienced before. And there have been books written by scientists about this. It's changing the human brain. It's changing the way the brain processes information. And how we process information dictates our perception of reality. And kids are having their brains rewired. And you know, people talk about love. Well, and people think loving your children and wanting the best for your children is giving them things that they want. Well, where does most stimulus come from what children want? It comes from the system, it comes from adverts, it comes from peer pressure and all that stuff. So the loving thing to do, the caring thing to do for your child from that perception of love is to give them a mobile phone. And they'll love you for it. They'll like you for it. Oh, thank you, Mum. Thank you, Dad. Just what I wanted. The really loving thing is not to give them a mobile phone and to take their disappointment and to take often their anger. You don't care about me, because you care about them deeply, because you're not supporting them going down this road of technological control. So when people say there's nothing I can do, I'm just little me, first of all, you're not little me, that's just a perception of yourself. But there's endless things we can do. The question is, are we going to do them? And that answer to that question will decide if we end up in this technological dystopia or whether we don't. Right. And we better start making the choice quick because it's moving fast.
What's next for you? I heard we got another book coming soon.
Yeah, I'm about a week finishing a book. I've got to tell you now, it will be possibly the most controversial book of modern times, possibly ever, given the nature of human society that we've been talking about.
Not just your most controversial book ever, the most controversial.
Oh, the most controversial book. Oh, yeah.
In all time.
They'll have to take to their beds, mate. They'll have to take to their beds and drink some broth because, you know, I've used the analogy in the book that it's like standing in a lift, an elevator, and the doors are closing. And they're gonna close unless you stick your arm through the door, and then they'll hit you and go out. We're at the point where the doors are closing and someone's got to stick their arm through the door. Because if they don't, they're gonna close. They're gonna close in the very near future. So I've written a book that is symbolically the arm going through the door. And it's going to make me very unpopular with all the right people. I'm going to be very interested in the reaction. But basically, it's all the things that people are intimidated not to say, but can be supported with fact. And therefore, why aren't we saying them?
And why say them now for you?
Because the door's closing.
Okay.
Two things. A, because the door's closing. And B, because I've reached a point in my now coming up to 30 years of research where even more pennies have dropped. The kaleidoscope has moved again. And therefore, I can write this book in absolute confidence that what I'm saying is true. And that's why I've been getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I've still been writing at 6 o'clock at night, day after day, because I've been so caught up in this unfolding story that I've been putting together, because it explains the world and current events and recent events that puts them in a totally different context.
Is it going to be banned? What's going to happen to you?
Well, if there are not demands that it's banned, I'll be staggered. But so what? So what? You see, when people think about the consequences of speaking their truth, they are thinking in the short term of immediate cause and effect. If I say this, if I write this, these are the consequences I'm going to get. And they might not think the consequences are very pleasant, so they'll not say it or not write it. I'm looking at consequences over a longer period of time. See, what happens to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? I'm a point of attention with an infinite awareness. Whatever happens to me, I'll just continue my journey of forever, experiencing, exploring forever. You know, so what happens to me in the short term, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
You really mean that, don't you?
Yeah, I mean that, because that frees me to say what I believe to be right without thinking about consequences. I don't just not fear consequences, don't even think about them. Maybe I'm aware of them, but I don't think about, well, if I say this, what the consequence is. My criteria is, can I support this as being true? Yes, okay, I'm going to say it, I'm going to write it.
And we saw this 30 years ago on The Wogan Show. You spoke your truth.
And that's all you can do. But, you know, where I'm going with this is people look at the immediate cause and effect consequences. If I say I write this, these are the consequences. I'm looking at these consequences, not the consequences of what you say, the consequences of not saying it. Because the consequences of not saying it, of not putting that arm through the door, means that this is going to play out. And look your kids in the eye, look your grandchildren in the eye, and just think on the world they're going to live in. If people think it's bad now, if people think free speech is being deleted now, if people think dystopia is unfolding now, what's it going to be like for them? That drives me on in relation to my own children, my own grandchildren. What's it going to be like for them? And I'm not going to expose what's happening to head that off because someone might abuse me and try to ban my book. Are you having a laugh? Of course I'm going to do it. Because not doing it is unthinkable. And this is what we need people to do, not to think of short-term consequences, but to think of longer-term consequences, not only for themselves, but even more so for their kids and grandkids. The greatest gift that we can give our children and grandchildren is to head this off so they don't have to live in this world that's unfolding and being planned for them. And not to play a part in their preparation with these things of making them accept it. This is what, you know, when people say, what can I do? Endless things you can do. First of all, don't be intimidated into silence, because once it goes silent, it's silent for good.
What's your obituary going to read? What are they going to say about David Icke when you're gone?
Doesn't matter. It matters as much of what they say about me when I've gone as what they're saying about me when I'm here. You tell me you tell me I'm a hero and I'm this and I'm that. Thanks. You tell me I'm some evil bloody racist and whatever you. Okay. You know, don't get caught in either. Don't get caught in the hero. Don't get caught in the villain. Just be your unique self. How you're seen externally doesn't matter. The truth matters. You know, doing what you believe to be right by everybody matters. The consequences you get for that don't matter. They don't matter at all. And, you know, if you really believe in what you're doing and you believe in what you're saying is coming, these things do not pass through your thought processes in the sense that there is no, what are the consequences of doing this? What are the consequences of doing that? The criteria is always, is it right? Is it true? Can I justify this? Can I support it? Have I crossed the line where I've got enough evidence to say, yes, this is happening? That's the criteria. Consequences, they'll take care of themselves. You know, 30 years ago, when I couldn't walk down any street in Britain without being laughed at, where going into a bar was, you know, uproar, where I would go and talk at university students' unions, masochistically, the height of the ridicule, and you know, have abuse shouted at me all night by the decision makers of tomorrow. People would have said, that Icke finished. Icke finished. Well, but if you keep going and you don't stop and defend yourself, you don't run away, you just keep being your unique self and doing what you believe to be right. If what you're saying has validity, eventually it will be shown to be so. And your life will change, as mine has, from what it used to be with all the ridicule and abuse everywhere.
It's changed how?
It's changed in the sense that now people are looking at what I'm saying and going, hold on a minute, this makes sense. Which you would never have thought. That night of the Wogan show, how many people would have said, one day, vast numbers of people are going to take this guy seriously. What, you're having a laugh, mate. He's finished. My father said something to be very, very telling when I was a kid. He said to me, Dave, he said, because he called me Dave, like, because that's my name. He said, you're never finished in life until you admit that to yourself. Never. You sit down in a chair and say, I'm finished, you're finished. But until that point is reached, don't matter what anyone says about you, doesn't matter what situation we're in, you're never finished. There's always a tomorrow. There's always another day. And I've always remembered that. And I basically live by it. And there is another day. You know, kids who are being abused on social media and by their narcissistic friends who think that their life is over because of, what people are saying about them. There's always tomorrow. The sun comes up tomorrow, it's another day. And that leads to another day and another day and another day. And eventually you're in a day that was nothing like the one you thought was forever. Nothing's forever. Unless you allow it to be forever by being the same person forever, then you won't change. But there's always another day. And whatever they do to me, whatever they say to me, however they want to silence me, I'll just keep on doing my thing and I'll work a way around it somehow. And there's always tomorrow and there's always another day. And so however bad things are now, it's just an experience. There'll be another one along in a minute.
There's a point in the movie where these kids are writing on the beach the word freedom, and you get very emotional about this whole thing. This whole thing is emotional for you, right?
Well, it's emotional because I care about it, but I don't get emotional in my research and my writing. You have to be back from that. But I do get emotional, and that point in the film was extraordinary because. And I got partly emotional because of its extraordinary nature. When I started out on this journey, consciously anyway, journey started when I arrived, but with hindsight, but consciously. My life became this synchronistic journey of coincidence, where information would come to me and I'd meet people or I'd come across books or documents or personal experiences that were all like puzzle pieces being handed to me to put together. And these synchronicities they were almost confirmations. You know, when at the height of the ridicule, when everything seemed lost, these coincidences would keep happening. And they were like saying, come on, you're going in the right direction, keep going. And it was one of the motivations, because something was happening in my life, because there were so many coincidences. And when we filmed in 4 countries across a long period of time, several months. And eventually they came to the Isle of Wight to film me at home and places that I love and where I go. And they decided, they were chatting to me, and I said, I came here as a kid and I used to stand on the pier at Ryde watching the steam trains go up and down. That's when I fell in love with the Isle of Wight. And they said, oh, we'll go there. And, oh, we won't go there now, we'll go later because we'll film somewhere else now. So, apparently it was all random timing, when we were going to go. So we end up at the end of the day, at this point on the pier, where I used to watch steam trains go past. They're electric trains now, obviously. And they're filming me and stuff. And then one of them said, hey, look at this. I think it was Jamie. Hey, look at this. And I walked across the other side of the pier and I looked down at the beach. And there was a mother and 2 children, like young teenagers. And they were writing, as people will see in the film, the word freedom, a massive word freedom, on the beach. And that was the beach when I used to watch steam trains, where I used to sit, and where we used to sit with my mother and father and my brother Paul. And there was freedom being written and on the beach. And the filming was all about, the whole film is about the freedom. And for that to happen at that point of all points, when they could have written freedom on the beach any time, we could have gone there any time, but the two came together. Was a very powerful moment for me, because not only was it a sign of the times, here is people writing freedom in a beach. So something's happening here. People are beginning to become more aware that we need to defend it. But it was also at the very same time that we were there, same time they were filming, and I did get quite emotional, because I can see how the world could be. There's people dying of diseases that are curable. There's people in poverty that don't need to be. There's people suffering that don't need to suffer. And there's all these things that are called unsurmountable problems. All these things that, you can't fix that, it's just the way the world is. But after 30 years of research, I know that it's not the way the world could be. It's the way the world is meant to be. It's manipulated to be like that. We have all these things, all these ills of the world, because they are made to happen. And if they're made to happen, other things can be done in terms of behavior that can stop them happening. But I did find that a very powerful moment, which brought a lot of things together, brought my life together in the last 30 years, really. And it also was indicative of this awakening that's happening, this realization that the world's not like it we're told it is, and the powers that are dictating the world and the direction of it are not the powers we think are happening. And I'll tell you one other thing while I remember, which is very relevant now with all the Brexit mess. The goal eventually, and they have a term for it, this cabal, they call it the post-democratic society. They have a goal of deleting democracy, as we call it, and the right of the people to choose their leaders. That's where they want this to go. And it's in their own writings that what they plan to do in the run-up to this is to get the population absolutely in despair and contempt for their political leaders. And we're seeing that around the world now. Because they want a situation where people are so contemptuous of so-called elected leaders that they become open to other people taking over the mantles of power, so long as they'll make things better than they are. That process is happening. You're going to see more of it, the demonization of politicians. And the more self-centered, mendacious, lying, mendacious, incompetent politicians you can bring to power, the more contempt the public will have and the more you'll get your outcome.
All part of the plan.
All part of the plan.
Are we going to make it, David?
Choice. Choice. Does Neo get out of the car and walk down the street in the rain? You've been down that road before, Neo. Or does he stay in the car and make a different choice? That is the choice we have. People have the choice every day. Do I speak out or do I not? And I'll tell you this from experience, when you speak out, you'll find that there are others around you you never believed, never thought, who support what you're saying. And the more that people speak out, the more confidence other people have to speak out. And stop looking up. Stop looking up. You know that Val Dunican song, walk tall, look straight, and look the world right in the eye. That's what my mama told me when I was about knee high. She said, son, be a proud man and hold your head up high. Walk tall, walk straight, and look the world right in the eye. We need to stop looking up. When things are happening that we don't like, instead of going, what are they going to do about it? Which is giving the power there. What am I going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? That's the level where problems are sorted out. Not there, here and here. And there's billions of us. Why can't we get together and do it ourselves? Of course we can. But we're so used to giving our power away and looking up. What are they going to do about it, them politicians? Instead of doing it for ourselves, that we give our power away all the time. We need to take it back. Make them irrelevant. Make them irrelevant, because they are really, but make them really irrelevant by doing things ourselves instead of demanding that they do them.
David, I very much appreciate the things that you do. A lot of people know you for a lot of different things, the isms, the this and the that. And before I got you in here about 1.5 years ago, that's all I kind of knew.
Right.
I heard this and he said, she said, this is this. But when you're in that chair, you're trying to get us to wake up and be ourselves.
Yeah.
And to take responsibility and ask questions and wake up. And this is a great message. You know, this is an important message.
Have you noticed something also?
What's that?
The word wake has been hijacked. They call it woke. You know that? That progressive word?
Yes.
Are you woke? Am I woke? What do you study at university? English grammar. Oh, right, okay. Are you woke? No, what? But are you woke? It means, are you into political correctness and all this stuff? That's not woke. That's not awake. That's solid gold asleep. We need to awaken. What does that mean? What does awaken mean? It means to delete the programs of perception of self and the world that we've allowed ourselves to be perceptually controlled and programmed by. That point of consciousness is already awake. What stops us being as awake in our human perceptions and actions as our consciousness is awake are the perceptual programs, the onion skins that dictate our perceptions while we're in this reality. And awakening is simply removing the programs. You know, you don't have to seek enlightenment. We are enlightened. We are enlightened. We're consciousness. We're enlightened consciousness of what we are. It's not about seeking it. Don't seek what you already are. Remove what's keeping you from that conscious connection with what you are, which is the programs. And just get a blank sheet of paper, symbolically or literally, and say, my perceptions getting on that piece of paper are now going to be dictated by me. They're going to be dictated not what I'm told to think, not what I'm told is, but what I genuinely think myself, what I feel is right, what I've researched and believe is accurate. They're my perceptions. Rather than taking your perceptions, as we used to say years ago, off the peg, and just take them wholesale. No. Become a unique point of observation. And, you see this groupthink where you have to think everything the group believes. If there's 10 things the group believes, you can't believe 6 of them and not believe 4, or you're an outcast. You've got to believe all of them. And you show me any group, any people, and they'll be saying some things that you will agree with and some things you won't agree with. Pick them off individually. That makes sense. The same person says something else. No, that doesn't make sense. So I'll take that and I'll leave that, rather than taking wholesale belief systems and they become you. We've got to disconnect from the herd, because the herd mentality is how the few control the many. It's how the shepherd controls the sheep. And when we break away from the herd mentality, we break away from control, because a handful of people can't control 7.7 billion individuals, or even a fraction of that. And individuals is what we need to be. Collectively supporting each other, yes, but not being a group, being an individual, unique point of observation. And what a wonderful world that would be. What a wonderful world where we celebrate diversity. This is another great of the list of ironies, is that those that spout about diversity are destroying it. I believe in diversity, you can't say that. But me saying that is diversity, right? It's another opinion. Oh no, but that's not the right diversity. And what a wonderful diverse society you'd have if people brought to the table their own unique spin on everything, their own unique creativity and way of doing things and way of seeing things, how the world and humanity would move on in that state, instead of being confined to this narrow band of perception that we're allowed to have and nothing beyond it. Got to stop. And when it does, the world will change massively for the better.
You really care about humanity, don't you? It's very important to you.
I care about how the world could be compared with how it is. There's something, when you look at suffering, you see it in a certain way if you convince yourself there's nothing we can do about it. That's the way the world is. That's bad enough. But when I see suffering, I see how it could be. I see that it doesn't have to be. Because when you take someone suffering from whatever hunger, whatever war, and you chart back the sequence, you come to the same people who are making it happen. If we remove control there, all that consequence of that disappears. The world could change so fast for the better. It really could, because the world that we call the world and what happens in the world is simply a collection of, it's the collective state of human consciousness. When human consciousness changes, the world it manifests must change. If we care about each other and love each other, we live in a caring, loving world. If we hate or have conflict with each other, we live in a world of conflict and hatred. The world we live in is just the manifestation of human choice made by consciousness. If we give our power away, what are they going to do about it? Then we live in a world controlled by a few people. If we make a different choice and take the power back, then we live in a world which a few people cannot control, because there's too many points of decision making and too many points of choice. And that's another thing, What is freedom? What is freedom? on one level, on one massive level, freedom is the ability to make choices. The more choices you can freely make, the more freedom you have. The fewer choices you have, the less freedom you have. And what this whole conspiracy is about is squeezing human choice. And as they squeeze human choice, even the choice of what opinion you can have now, then they're squeezing human freedom. Because choice and freedom are interconnected. They are expressions of each other. And we need to surely not concede our right to make choices, not least in what we say and what we believe. And the more choices we insist on having, the more freedom starts to manifest.
The movie is Renegade.
Renegade.
It's going to be premiering in London, Manchester, New York, Los Angeles, right?
Yeah, end of this month, towards the end of this month, there's going to be a premiere in Manchester and a premiere in London. The details are on davidicke.com. I'm going to attend all of them.
I'll be the one in London too.
Oh yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, take questions afterwards. And then I'm going to Los Angeles and New York. We're going to do the same there, and that's shortly after. So it's only in a few weeks' time. And I'll be interested to see how it's received, because the whole idea is to bring more and more people into seeing that the world's not like they thought it was. Because I know from my experience that once people see that one thing's not like they thought it was, then the dominoes start to fall. Well, what else have I been thinking that's not true? And the whole thing starts to motor. And it's a great time. It's a great time of challenge because of what's happening. But it's a great time of optimism, because if there wasn't an awakening going on outside the public arena that we see, then we really would be up the Swanee without one of them. But it is happening. So we have a chance, and we have to keep going and not give up on it. Because if we do, we're giving up on freedom, and what's the point of that?
I'm glad we're finishing on that note of optimism, and I'm glad we went a little dark there, because it's important that people understand how serious these conditions are, because it's hard for me to listen to a lot of that stuff. I've got kids, young kids, and they've got to live in this world. Congratulations on the movie. I very much enjoyed it. I think it's incredible that you kind of let go of creative control over it, because someone else made it, and they made a great kind of an introduction to David Icke, and I think it's going to be powerful for
That was the point. I had nothing to do with the editing. When I saw it, it was finished. And that was good, because it was done by people that were not big time into the information. That's very important.
I think people are going to love it. I'm looking forward to the next book. I'm looking forward to getting an early copy, I hope.
I'm looking forward to the next book. I'm not sure some people are going to be, though, but I am.
Good. Well, keep doing what you're doing. You're looking amazing. You look fit and strong. I know you work hard, so please try to take care of yourself.
No problem.
So you can keep the message up. We're always here when you want to stop by for a conversation. Again, really appreciate what you do, the sacrifice you put out there, and just trying to get these ideas into people's minds. It's super important. Let's try to keep you on these platforms and keep talking about this. And just really appreciate you, David. So
it's always a pleasure to talk to you, mate.
Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.